Right now, on Hawaii's Big Island, the United States Geological Survey has confirmed something never seen before at any Hawaiian volcano in recorded history. On Tuesday evening, Kilauea's summit fired lava fountains 500 feet into the night sky, an event officially logged as Episode 52. That number alone doesn't sound dramatic until you understand what it actually means. This eruption just broke a record that had stood since 1986, and it broke it by 5 full episodes. Let's start with what actually happened Tuesday night, because the sequence itself is genuinely dramatic. At 1:56 in the afternoon, HVO's monitoring instruments picked up the first signs of trouble, a slow overflow of lava from Kilauea's north vent. Scientists watching the data called this precursory activity the volcano's way of clearing its throat before the main event. At 7:10 that evening, the pattern shifted for good. Continuous fountaining began, starting at a modest 100 feet and climbing steadily. By 9:12 p.m., under a full moon, the north vent was firing molten rock 500 feet into the air. The eruption illuminated an ash plume that had climbed to 19,000 feet above sea level. And then, at 2:36 the following morning, after 7.4 hours of continuous fountaining, it simply stopped. Here's the number that should genuinely surprise you. This single vent erupted an estimated 6.1 million cubic yards of lava. That's enough to cover between 40 and 50% of the entire floor of Halemaumau crater in a single night. The instantaneous effusion rate at its peak hit 350 cubic yards per second. That's a volcano moving more molten rock in 1 second than most heavy construction equipment moves in an entire week. To picture 6.1 million cubic yards, that's enough to fill more than 1,800 Olympic-sized swimming pools in under 8 hours. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever seen an active lava eruption in person or watched one on a live stream? If you want to know every time something major develops at Kilauea, subscribe to the channel right now. Thank you. At the Wekahuna Overlook inside Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, visitors that night found themselves standing in a genuinely strange kind of light. A full moon hung overhead, while below them, the crater glowed orange from a lava fountain taller than a 40-story building. USGS photographer M. Patrick captured the scene as tourists who had planned an ordinary evening walk instead watched one of the most significant eruptive events in the volcano's modern history unfold in front of them, close enough to feel the heat radiating off the crater rim. This particular eruption sequence has quietly turned into one of the more unusual tourism stories in the national park system over the past year, because Kilauea's summit vents sit close enough to public overlooks, and because HVO's tiltmeter forecasts have become reliable enough to flag likely windows. Park rangers and visitors alike have developed something close to a routine around these episodes, preparing days in advance. Live stream cameras run continuously on USGS's own public feed, and tens of thousands of people have tuned in from around the world, watching in real time as the same shallow magma system that produced Episode 1 back in December of 2024 goes through its 50-second cycle. For a phenomenon this genuinely rare in human timescales, an eruption sequence now setting all-time records for persistence. The fact that anyone with an internet connection can watch it unfold live, for free, is easy to take for granted. Now here's why this specific episode matters so much more than just being one more fountain in a long eruption. This is episode 52 in an ongoing eruption sequence at Kilauea's summit that first began back in December of 2024. To understand why that number is such a big deal, you need a comparison point, and the most direct one comes from Kilauea's own history. Between January 1983 and 1986, the volcano's Pu'u O'o eruption produced a similarly episodic high fountaining sequence, and it eventually racked up 47 separate fountaining episodes over roughly 3.5 years. For more than 4 decades, that 47 episode count stood as the record for this specific kind of eruptive behavior at any Hawaiian volcano ever documented. This current sequence broke that record on June 1st, 2026 at episode 48, and it didn't just break it broke it in less than half the time. The current Halemaumau sequence reached the same 47 episode mark in approximately a year and a half, a pace more than twice as fast. Episodes 49, 50, 51, and now 52 have simply extended that lead further. USGS Deputy Scientist in Charge David Phillips described the significance directly when the sequence reached episode 50, calling it plainly the largest number of eruption episodes ever seen at a Hawaiian volcano eruption in recorded history. It's worth understanding what that original Pu'u O'o eruption actually looked like, because the comparison only means something once you picture both events side by side. Pu'u O'o began in January of 1983 along Kilauea's East Rift Zone, a completely different location from the summit vents erupting today, and it went on to become one of the longest-lived rift eruptions, eventually running for over 3.5 decades before finally ending in 2018. The current Halemaumau sequence, by contrast, has crammed a slightly higher episode count into a dramatically shorter window. suggesting a shallow magma system beneath the summit that is refilling and venting on a noticeably faster cycle than anything Pu'u O'o ever demonstrated. It's worth being precise here, because record-breaking episode counts and record-breaking fountain heights are two completely different measurements. This isn't the tallest lava fountain Kilauea has ever produced. That record still belongs to the 1959 Kilauea Iki eruption, which produced 17 high fountain episodes, including one that reached approximately 1,900 feet, nearly 4 times taller than Tuesday night's fountain. To put that height in perspective, Wiltshire 800 feet is taller than the Empire State Building stacked nearly 1.5 times over. A single column of molten rock thrown that high into the Hawaiian night sky over just 17 distinct episodes in late 1959. That eruption remains, to this day, the tallest lava fountain ever measured on Earth. What makes the current sequence historic isn't height, it's persistence. 17 episodes in 1959 over a period of about 5 weeks. 47 episodes across 3.5 years in the 1980s. 52 episodes and counting in roughly a year and a half now. This volcano is cycling through these dramatic fountaining events faster than ever. In the modern instrumental record, no single episode has come close to matching 1959's raw vertical extremes, yet the frequency is unprecedented. Let's talk about how scientists actually saw this one coming, because this is genuinely one of the more remarkable parts of the story. HVO's tilt meter forecasts accurately predicted the onset of episode 52 within a July 28th to 30th window, days before the fountain actually began. A tilt meter is a deceptively simple instrument. It measures microscopic changes in the tilt of the ground surface as magma accumulates in a shallow reservoir. It's slowly inflating the ground like a balloon being filled from underneath. When that inflation reaches a repeatable threshold, an eruptive episode is close. Think about what that requires. A tilt meter doesn't measure anything dramatic. It's detecting a change in slope on the order of microradians. This angle is so small, it would be genuinely difficult to perceive by eye even if you were standing directly on top of it. By tracking that tiny signal over months, scientists have identified a repeatable pattern. Inflate to a threshold, vent, deflate, then climb back up. 52 episodes in, that pattern is consistent enough to forecast against, which is why they could flag a window and watch the volcano deliver. This isn't guesswork anymore. This eruption sequence has become predictable enough that the observatory can issue a genuine multi-day forecast window and be right. Here's the alert system detail that actually matters if you're visiting this park. As activity intensified, HVO raised the alert from advisory to watch. The aviation color code went from yellow to orange, the internationally standardized system used to warn pilots about ash hazards to aircraft. By Wednesday morning, with the fountaining over, both ratings stepped back to advisory and yellow. It's worth understanding what those tiers mean. The USGS uses a 4-tier system: normal, advisory, watch, and warning, paired with aviation color codes: green, yellow, orange, and red. Advisory and yellow represent a volcano exhibiting signs of unrest, or actively erupting in a way that matches its own well-understood pattern. Watch and orange represent a step up, used when eruptive activity has increased and poses an elevated hazard that needs closer tracking. Kilauea only spent a few hours at watch and orange, precisely bracketing the fountaining episode itself, then dropped back down once it stopped. This is exactly what you'd expect from a hazard that's genuinely well understood and tightly time-bound, rather than a slow-moving crisis. That rapid escalation isn't a sign of confusion. It's a sign of a monitoring system precise enough to track a hazard that turns on and off. It means we don't have to treat an entire multi-year eruption as one continuous, unchanging emergency. We can be precise. Let's get specific about the mechanics of what happened inside the crater itself, because the north and south vents did not behave the same way. That asymmetry tells scientists something important. Only the north vent produced a lava fountain during episode 52. The south vent, its counterpart inside Halemaumau, never fountained at all during the precursory activity or the main eruptive episode. It did, however, emit flames at the very end in the last few minutes alongside gas jetting from the north vent. This kind of asymmetric behavior isn't unique to episode 52. Throughout this sequence, the two vents have periodically traded dominance. Scientists monitoring the shallow plumbing system beneath Halemaumau track this pattern closely, offering a window into magma distribution. A vent that stays quiet may simply be sitting at a different pressure threshold, ready for a future episode as the reservoir shifts. Here's what happened immediately after the fountain stopped. Seismicity followed the normal change in tremor patterns seen after fountaining ends. But more importantly, the ground beneath the summit began reinflating almost immediately. Rapid reinflation indicates another episode is likely. This eruption isn't winding down. The same underground pressure system is already recharging for what comes next. Picture what that reinflation represents. Less than 8 hours after lava was pushed out, the reservoir had already started refilling. There was no pause. The pressure for episode 53 was already building before the rock from episode 52 had even finished cooling. Fresh lava takes days to weeks to solidify. The crust was certainly still glowing at the exact moment the tilt meters started climbing again. Let's be honest about the hazards. A lava fountain 500 feet tall is spectacular, but it isn't harmless entertainment. Volcanic glass, known as Pelly's hair, can be carried by wind. These thin fibers can irritate skin, eyes, and lungs. Tetrafall during episode 52 was restricted to closed areas, but officials advise caution, especially for those with respiratory conditions. Let's zoom out for a second and put this entire sequence in its full historical context. Kilauea sits atop the Hawaiian hotspot, a plume of hot rock rising while the Pacific tectonic plate slowly drifts northwest. That slow drift created the island chain. Kilauea is the current product of that same ancient plume, settling into a metronomic pattern. Nobody at USGS is describing this as an escalating crisis. The Volcano Alert Level sits at Advisory, the second lowest tier. This is a story about persistence, about an eruption outlasting every comparable event in the modern scientific record for 2 years now. Under a full moon, ordinary visitors watched it happen in person, close enough to feel the heat from the rim. Kilauea isn't just erupting, it's setting a record for persistence, recharging for episode 53 before 52 even finished cooling. Every one of these 52 episodes has followed essentially the same physical process, watched by the same instruments and cameras. Geological events don't usually repeat themselves this cleanly. Kilauea, right now, is doing exactly that. Subscribe so you do not miss episode 53. Drop a comment and tell us if you visited Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Let us push for 5,000 likes on this video. We will see you in the next one.